Woolworths in South Africa has found itself caught up in a social media storm, being accused of refusing to employ white people. That's after it launched an advertisement, a vacancy for jobs that were reserved, it seems, for blacks, colours and Indians, and the trade union Solidarity saying that's just not good enough. We're now joined by Dirk, Hermann, who is of the union Solidarity, which is leading a boycott against this retailer of Woolworths, and then Ferial, Haffajee. She's no stranger to many of our audiences. She's the editor of City Press newspaper. Dirk, let me start with you. Good morning, first and foremost. For the benefit of our listeners outside, please tell us what happened here.
Well, it's quite simple. Woolworths place ads that exclude specific racial groups. In some of the ads, only Africans are actually allowed to apply for a specific post. In some of the other ads, you can also allow the Indian and colour communities to apply for a specific post. So they have absolute exclusions from a racial point of view in certain ads. Now the problem is, if you look at the Employment Equity Act in South Africa, the Act does not allow this absolute quota, this absolute barriers. There's more than one case that actually also brought out this principle that you can't do it. So the fact is, Woolworths are actually acting outside the boundaries of affirmative action, and they only use quotas. That means they use the national demographics in South Africa as an absolute yardstick to apply affirmative action. And then
Dirk,
those things happen.
What would you have wanted Woolworths to do? What would have been a fairer advertisement?
In the first place, that anyone must be allowed to apply for that specific job. You must take into account the dignity and equality of all in South Africa. Like they do it now, the irony is someone like Ferial Haffajee, the editor of City Press, can't apply for a post in the Western Cape where colours are actually the majority, because coloured South Africans are excluded from the post in the Western Cape. And that is what happens if you have a mathematical approach to affirmative action and not an affirmation approach.
Let's bring in Ferial Haffajee. Ferial, what is your take on this Woolworths debacle?
Morning, Lerato. I think that really what Solidarity and AfriForum are stoking is a proxy war against the entire principle of equity or of affirmative action. Without it, I'm not sure how we are to fix our country, because really it's been employment equity that has been behind the rather amazing growth of a strong black middle class that has kept our economy buoyant in the worst times of the global recession. So Mr. Hermann may say it's about an advert. In fact, if you read their letter writing campaign, if you read everything that the strong trade union says on employment equity, they really want to rubbish it and to burn it. And if you see what their supporters are saying, it's not about an ad, it's about the entire principle of making right for our past.
Ferial, how do you respond to people who say this is an exaggeration of affirmative action when you simply exclude all women, white women, from applying for a job? It should be open to anybody who's from the disadvantaged communities, black, white, Indian, whatever.
I think I don't know if you're living in South Africa or London now, but if you go into any Woolworths store, you will see that there hasn't been any blanket exclusion of any particular race group. In fact, it looks like a representation of our country. You'll see staff of all colors working there. And if you look properly, you'll see that there is work to do in certain categories, and that's what Woolworths was trying to do.
Well, I still live in South Africa, and I still have my own observations about Woolworths. Dirk, Hermann, here's Ferial Haffajee saying this issue is about transforming the South African economy, because we do know that apartheid was essentially an economic policy to exclude blacks and colours and Indians from the mainstream economy, and these programs are designed to redress that.
If you look at the specific program that Woolworths use, it's the same kind of program that the South African government also use. They say that you use the national demographics, and then you drive to actually have a situation in the workplace where you have an exact replica of the national demographics. Then suddenly it became just a number game. And this is what happened here as well. They say we measure our employee workforce against the national demographics, and then only on a mathematical sum we appoint people or not. And that is what's happening in the Western Cape now. On a mathematical sum, they say the Western Cape is not reflecting the national demographics, not the Western Cape demographics. And suddenly coloured South Africans are excluded on a mathematical approach and not on the base that they are advantaged or not advantaged. And what
Ferial,
we say is...
I'd just like Ferial to end this conversation for us. Our audience is obviously international. They appreciate the complexity of South Africa. But help me understand. In 2012, we are still discussing issues in the simplicity of black and white, maybe even colors.
I think that 18 years feels like a long time. It's almost a generation, but really if you look at it through the telescope of our history, it's been a short moment. And any number of annual reports will show you that by our calculations, I think we've got another 20 to 25 years to go to reach the non-racial society that Nelson Mandela dreamed of. Sometimes we have to count numbers. It's not polite, but we have to do it in order to get there.
Thanks so much for your time. Ferial Haffajee, she's the editor of the City Press newspaper, and also representing the Union Solidarity is Dirk, Hermann.
Responses to that story on the Facebook page. And Lemayan says, whites perfected racism in South Africa for decades. They're now crying foul. Who'd have thought? It isn't racism, but affirmative action. Real South Africans are still economically colonized. However, on the other side, Mba Pascal, who's writing from Nigeria, says, I wish South Africans to know that it's in their own interest as a nation and that of their young democracy to say no to any form of racism.